I am sure many of you guys remember the whole Draw My Life segment trend on YouTube. A lot of people did it. I wanted to do it, but there was really no way that I could depict a Draw My Life video and depict some of the things that have happened in my life that I've went through drawing it. Just to give you an example, how would one draw my life in regards to sexual abuse? I'm not sure how I would portray that through drawing on a little board with a marker. I don't understand how, or I don't see any way I could portray that through any type of drawing, and it would be really weird for me to do that. Rather, I want to make a personal video to you guys, my testimony video. There's going to be information that I've never shared with you, and information that I've shared with you in previous older videos of mine. This is going to be from the earliest day that I can remember all the way to current day right now, other things that I've went through, how I've got past it, most of all how I've come out of a lot of things, and how I've learned and grown as a person despite growing up in a very toxic household. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Daniel Sulzbach. I come from a German descent. I'm 50% German, part Finn, and Dutch. I believe a little bit of Dutch. And I'm also Irish. I'm Irish, Finn, Dutch, and German, but primarily German. Sulzbach is a German name. My dad's side is a very, very stubborn German, hardcore German sausage and alcohol. My mom's side is from Finnish and Irish. I was born in 1991, December 5th. I was born premature. Very premature. I was actually supposed to be born January, sometime in mid-January or Christmas Day. Also, guys, this is a full video, no edits, no nothing, so I'm going to fumble over words. Bear with me. No edits. I'm going to struggle speaking. So I was born December 5th, 1991. I was born into a very religious family. I was the third born, the last born. My sister was the firstborn, Sarah. My second was my brother, Jonathan. And I was the last born. My sister and brother both were not allowed to watch shows like Power Rangers, Care Bears, The Smurfs, Ninja Turtles. When I was born, I was allowed to watch all the shows that they weren't allowed. I think that's a very common thing with last-born children is they're allowed to do a lot more and have a lot more privileges than the previous two children. So I was always looked upon as my brother and sister as the spoiled child because I was allowed to do things that they were not. Well, the thing is, though, is that despite me being the third born, I was also the child that was spanked the most. My parents believed in spanking. And weird thing about that is my mom and dad both had two different spanking methods. My dad was always the person who'd do one or two big spankings, and they'd be really powerful, like, swat! 15 seconds, swat! And it would hurt, obviously, and I'd cry, eh. And then my mom would be the woman who would pick up a spoon, and she'd spank me with a wooden spoon like a machine gun. Like within a matter of 20 seconds, she'd spank me 20 different times. Like she was this speed spanker, and my dad was always the slow one or two spanks. But with power, my mom was always the multiple different spankings with speed and stinging. Why I'm sharing you with that, I don't know. But I got spankings all of the time. I was the kid. My brother and my sister still make fun of me for being the child who got the most spankings because I was always the one who was doing bad things or doing rebellious things. We lived in a neighborhood for up until I was 6, and up until I was 6, then we moved to my current place that my parents are residing right now. And I was very angry. I was a very angry child growing up, as you'll probably figure out why. My earliest memory as a child was picking up a gigantic, thick book from a kid who stole my truck that I was playing with, and I bashed him over the head with it. And I got in big trouble for that, but, you take my goddamn truck, I'm gonna beat you the fuck up. That's what I did. I picked up a gigantic book, and I bashed him over the head with it. My parents were like, that was when we know that our Daniel was a true man of God. Daniel from the Bible, because he defended himself, and he wouldn't let people walk over him. So we moved to my new place. I was very angry that we moved because I lost all my friends, and one of the first things that I did is on our big, long, blacktop driveway is we had lights. There's a certain name for them, but we had lights in the ground, those lights that protrude and, light the entire driveway. Well, me being the angry kid, and I was upset that we moved, I thought it would be a great idea to run and kick every single one of those lights. And they run about $200 each, and I kicked them, and the light bulb smashed and crashed, and I kicked the wiring, ripped the wiring out from the ground. This was about 15 of these all down the driveway. Got in big trouble. I was upset and angry that we moved, and I no longer had friends. The next thing I did is I took a knife and I stabbed a hole into our new floor that we had installed in the house that we just moved into, and dug a hole right near the refrigerator. I don't know why I did this, but I was angry and I was mad. I lost all my friends, and I had good friendships at that old neighborhood that I lived at. And that's when we started going to the church. And I'm not going to name this church because it's still active and there's still people who I know that go there, but I'm just going to call it the church from hell. It was a very, very bad church. But going back further, actually, I shouldn't even go into the church segment yet. I became a Christian at age 6 at this new house. My mom sat me down when I was being disrespectful to her. I was talking to her with a very rude tone, and she sat me down. She said something to where, like, you wouldn't talk this way if you were a Christian, or if you had Jesus, you wouldn't be this way. And, I'd grown up in Sunday school and being taught Jesus and the Bible and crucifixion and all that crap, and I'm 6 years old. I have an imagination. I was the kid who jumped from couch to couch, avoiding the lava, pretending to be Duke Nukem because I played Duke Nukem, the side-scrolling Duke Nukem, on a floppy disk growing up. So my imagination was imaginable. I jumped from couch to couch. I would pretend I had lightsabers. My imagination was incredible as a child. Still is to this day. I still am a child to a point. But my imagination was all over the place. So no wonder my parents could easily tell me about Jesus Christ and he can make me a better person simply, and I believed it. I was told about hell. So when you're 6 years old and you think about hell, it's a terrible, evil place. You don't want to go to it. And, my parents never taught me that Santa wasn't real. All these things weren't real. But when it came to Jesus and God, well, Jesus was real, and he wanted a relationship with you. And let's be honest, when you're 6 years old, the way parents and Sunday school teachers present Jesus and, having him enter your life and changing you is a very persuasive thing. When as a child, you're like, wow, this is going to make me a better person. I'm going to be amazing that I now have Jesus in my life, not even knowing what you're getting yourself into. So I became a Christian. My mom sat me down, said that I need Jesus, and I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. When I was 6 years old. Skipping from 6 up until my teen years, I lived a very basic, traditional life. I didn't really act out my Christianity or my beliefs. I didn't really understand what it meant to be a Christian at that time. I went along with the practices at my church. I prayed. I read the Bible because that's what I was taught. It goes to say that if I was raised in a Muslim family, that I probably would have become Muslim. That's how it goes. If I was raised in a Hindu family, I'd have been Hindu. I think that's how the majority of younger children go. You grow up in a Mormon household, you're going to be Mormon. That's the religion you're going to be exposed to. Sorry, I got to drink because this is a lot of stuff I got to talk about. It wasn't until about 11, 12 years old that I started questioning everything that I believed in, everything that was being taught from the church from hell. And that's kind of where my life kind of started. That's where everything went downhill from there. Was around 11, 12 years old when I started questioning things. I started asking things in Sunday school. The number one rule of religion is you don't ask questions, at least in church, because that's what got me put on the list of the person who, because he asked questions that he shouldn't be asking, he was being doubtful. And you can't be doubtful in your religion, because if you're doubtful, then you're not a true believer. That's one of the things that I was always told, that I wasn't a true believer up until I left the church. I was told that I wasn't a true believer because I believed in other things. Even though I was religious, I believed in differing religious beliefs. I was the kid who believed in evolution. I always looked at science more than the supernatural, you know. I'd ask questions like, why would God allow evil in the world? Why would God allow all these poor people to get disease and all these people to just be killed when tsunamis would happen and stuff? You know, I was always asking, and that's my biggest problem with Christianity, or any religion for that matter, is the problem of evil, how that religion addresses evil, and I don't believe Christianity sustains a good reason for the problem of evil. Oh, 2 people in the Garden of Eden, some snake came down and convinced Eve to eat from the tree of good and evil, and she did that and disobeyed God, and therefore the rest of humanity is doomed for childbearing and pain and sticker bushes, and now everything's ruined and tainted because 2 people and a snake convinced them. You know, I'm not even going to go into that whole the Adam and Eve story, but there's so many flaws within that story that I don't understand how many people can believe it. It just doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, 11, 12 years old, my speech impediment was really shining. I was made fun of a lot in the church. I was bullied a lot. And I don't, usually when people say, I was bullied, I don't fucking care, because that bullying that happened to me made me a stronger goddamn motherfucker. I'm glad that I was bullied, because it made me into a stronger person, and now people can say whatever the fuck they want to me, and for the most part, it doesn't bother me a bit. If people want to mock me for being sexually abused, by all means, mock me. It's not going to affect me. So all the shit that I went through, it toughened me up to the point that it doesn't affect me. People can mock me in any way that they want, and it doesn't bother me, because they're random people who I don't know, and you can't hurt me, you can't affect me unless I love you or I care about you. That's how it goes. So any anonymous thing people send me doesn't bother me. That's why when people make rape threats to me, I don't cower and like, oh my gosh, someone made a rape threat to me. It's triggering me. I can't do this. I can't be on the internet. I'm just not the type of person. Like, yeah, I was sexually abused, but people want to make rape jokes, make rape jokes. I don't use them myself for the obvious reasons, but being bullied toughened me the fuck up. And I like that. Although that bullying into church led me nearly to suicide and a bunch of other things that happened. But let's go back. I'm getting off topic here. So I was bullied in the church. I never felt welcomed. I was the kid who was always laughed at because I held a differing belief or I challenged people. And that was the thing, like, people knew me at the church as the kid who challenged people. I was always wanting to debate. And when someone would say something like in regards to evolution or creation, I would always challenge them. I'd always ask questions. That's my number one thing that I've always done in my life, is when I started hitting my teenage years, is asking questions. Ask questions. Asking questions. I can't even begin to tell you how censored I was from the outside world being in the religious household. I was homeschooled for the majority of my life up until college. I was homeschooled. I was socially inept. I think that's the right word. I didn't know how to interact with people who were not Christians. So when I was around people who were not Christians, I was one of those people who would say, like, how can you not believe in God, type of thing, I didn't know any better. I didn't know how to interact with anybody with differing beliefs than me, other than religious folks. Because I was never exposed to it. I was very socially awkward. I didn't know how sex even worked up until I was 13 years old. I discovered how sex worked through finding pornography by installing a thumb drive on my goddamn computer to keylog the password to a program called NetNanny. Because NetNanny would only allow me on the computer for 2 hours a day, and it would block any sort of sexual thing or movies or anything, violence, profanity, anything on the internet. So I was like oblivious to the outside world. I was oblivious to the internet. Even now, I'm getting to the point of being 25 years old. I'm not 25 yet, but there's so much stuff that I'm still learning because of my religious upbringing that I was never exposed to. Whether it be terminologies, whether it be references to drugs, alcohol, sex, things just I had no idea about. And I'm still learning to this very day because of how much religion hindered me from the outside world. But at the same time, religion helped me. It saved my life. to an extent, because I left the religion, and if I hadn't had religion, if I had been in, okay, I'm screwing up my words. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I don't mean to say religion saved me. Religion nearly killed me is what I meant to say. Where my life started to go downhill is where I got my first girlfriend at the church that I was at. And at the same time, this was when all the things started happening at once. Sexual abuse. And that's one of the reasons why I have such big trust issues with people. It's why it's hard for me to have roommates, is because of the sexual abuse that happened to me. Because someone who you look up to, an authority figure, this person has all the answers, they know the Bible. You look up to them and say, this is a person in power that I can look up to, an example in the church. And then they abuse your power and use it to sexually abuse you. And they threaten you, the typical sexual abuser. If you tell anybody, I'm going to harm your family, I'm going to hurt you. What are you supposed to do at age 14, 15 when that happens? When people say those types of things to you? Especially with my religious upbringing. If I hadn't been in a religious upbringing, I might have actually had the courage to go talk and tell someone what happened. But being so socially awkward, not knowing how to socialize with people, I didn't know. So what I did is I compartmentalized, which is one of the biggest, I think, flaws of any man. Women do this too, but it's more of a man thing, is when we compartmentalize our entire feelings. Whether it be sexual abuse, whether it be being bullied or whatever, we compartmentalize everything and we let it build up, and we just put it in this little box in our body, and we don't ever tell anybody anything. We don't ever express ourselves. And through time, we become numb. Through becoming numb, we become angry. Through compartmentalization, we become a bitter, angry, hateful person. And that's what I became. Through what happened to me at that church, is I became a miserable, miserable person. And I couldn't understand why I was so depressed, or it was partially because I was compartmentalizing everything that I was feeling at that time. From being bullied, being calling names, between being sexually abused. If I could give you one word of example, if you're a guy or girl, is don't compartmentalize. Find someone. If go to a counselor, go to a therapist, open up with that shit. Because if you don't, it's going to literally destroy you like it nearly destroyed me. In fact, my parents couldn't figure out why I was so angry all of the time. Being a 14, 15, up to 16-year-old, they couldn't figure out why I was so angry. I remember a particular point in my life where I was so upset and angry and conflicted with the sexual abuse that happened to me that I lashed out at my mother. And it was wrong of me, obviously, embarrassing, but I'm so thankful that my mother was understanding, because I screamed at her at the top of my lungs. I called my mom a dirty cunt. I threw things. I remember that time because I was going through an emotional wreck. And at that point, I broke down in front of my mom after calling her a dirty cunt. And I just said that I was being abused sexually. I thank my mom for being an understanding person. Because they could have looked at me, they could have outcasted me like some religious families have done. I'm not sure if you've heard the stories of where a child comes and say, I was sexually abused, and then the religious family outcasts them. We don't want nothing to do with you. You're tainted because you were sexually abused. And that's so wrong on so many levels, but it exists, and it's sad that type of behavior exists. Anyway, when my mom found out, they put me into therapy instantly. instantly. And therapy was a very good thing. They put me with a Christian counselor who, Dr. Penner, you're an awesome dude. Although you're a Christian and you're a Christian counselor, you helped me recover a lot. You helped me deal with all of my feelings, all of the pain that I was going through. So I was going through therapy on the sexual abuse, and at the same time, I was in a very abusive, manipulative relationship with my girlfriend at the time. And I mean, terrible relationship. This family claimed to be religious, but they were like this ultra, I don't even know how to describe their family, but their family was fucked up. I mean, really fucked up with the stuff that they would, basically, the mother and father of that relationship with a girlfriend deemed me her husband at age 16. They told me that I was planned on marrying her, that I was the one for her, that God was telling me that I was the one for her, and that this is the weird thing, is that I, as 16, being the man in the relationship, has to control her sexuality because she was a horny girl. I'm gonna flat out say that. She was a horny, sexual girl. Despite being religious, she was sexually crazy. Like, she was always wanting to make out with me, and she was actually trying to get me to have sex with her. And me being a religious guy at the time, knowing that premarital sex was wrong, I was like, no, I can't have sex with you, despite the temptation I had for it. We did do some things, but we never, got super sexual with one another. It was very hard, but they put the responsibility on me that I was to hold her responsible for any sexual conduct that she does, which doesn't even make sense to me. Like, you're the parents, the religious parents, you should have control of your own daughter and not put that if she tries to have sex with me, that it's going to be my fault if she tries to have sex. Like, it does. I don't even understand it. Family was just weird. But I cared for this person. because it was a 2-year-long relationship. They convinced me, the family of her convinced me to get in college at age 16 through Running Start. I'm going to tell you, I was not ready for college at age 16, but she got into Running Start, so the parents pushed me. My parents were against me starting college at age 16, but I was like, my girlfriend's doing it. I care for my girlfriend. I want to be in a relationship with her and go through college and have a college lifestyle of sitting next to one another in class and being a boyfriend and girlfriend, and I had college experience. I was all about that college experience with my girlfriend. And the first week of the college that I was in 3 of her classes. She broke up with me that week, the first week of college, broke up with me and started ogling some guy in the classes that I was in, of all 3 classes that I was in with her. She broke up with me for reasons I still don't know to this very day, which I'm glad she did. And she started ogling this other guy, and I was in the classroom as she was like holding another guy's hand. It was terrible. Like, it was one of the most, it made me feel so worthless. The fact that somebody I was in a relationship for 2 years all of a sudden breaks up with me and starts ogling some guy in her class, and I'm stuck in a classroom with her. It's just, it was so crazy that even happened. And then, I dropped out of all my first quarter of college. I dropped out of all my classes except my English class, because that was the most important one that I needed. So, because I couldn't deal with the pain of seeing my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, ogle some other guy and like have her hands all over him and kiss him in the fucking goddamn classroom that I was in. Like, who does that? But then I was promised by her saying that, we're going to get married and we're going to have the most awesome relationship in college, so she gave me all these promises that I was, holding on to, which were eventually broken. So that's another slash into my trust issue. So I had sexual abuse, then I had someone who I cared for who then lied to me and then cheated on me with another man, or broke up with me simply to have sex with another man, which was interesting. Just to skip that whole relationship, since I've talked about it. Months later, she actually came back to me and said that she wanted to have a relationship, and she broke up with me because she wanted to take a break. She wanted to take a break, which to me, that was like, hey, I wanted to take a break from our relationship, experiment with different guys, and then come back to you because it didn't work out with that other guy. Like, fuck you, dude. That's bullshit. You don't break up with someone, go date and have sex with somebody else, and then come back to the person who you broke up with expecting to get in a relationship with them. And, through all the pain that I was going through, I said, fuck you, I want nothing to do with you. So now that that's out of the way, she'll come back into the story soon. But I was going through counseling, and that's going through the counseling is also when I started to self-harm, which is odd that I started self-harming when I was going through counseling. But at that time, when I was self-harming, it was one of the only few things in my life that I could feel like I could control. So my self-harming was done for purely to control myself, and it was a temporal release. For those of you, some of my subscribers have seen me in real life, and we've met and stuff, and I've showed them, they've asked me about my scars, and I've showed them on the spot my left arm, and you can't really see it from the webcam quality, but I put failure, worthless, ugly, disgusting. I wrote every type of degrading word you can possibly imagine on my arm, and I carved it with a wood burning tool, which I just burnt it into my flesh. The scars are still there. They're healed, but they're probably going to be there the rest of my life. I would mentally browbeat myself and tell myself how worthless I was, and I had no value because of what happened to the sexual abuse. That's one of the things that happened to me is through that sexual abuse, I lost any sort of value to myself. I felt like no one would love me. I felt dirty and wrong. I felt like I had done something wrong, which is really weird. I don't understand this victim complex, why when we're hurt and we're harmed, we seem to think that it was our fault. That it was our fault. If I hadn't have trusted this person, they wouldn't have sexually abused me. But it's not my fault. It's not your fault if you've been sexually abused. You didn't put yourself in that situation. Someone took advantage of you. You were vulnerable, and they took advantage of their power, and they harmed you. It's not our fault. And it took me up until age almost 20 years old to get at that point that it wasn't my fault. It's not your fault. The scene in Good Will Hunting, when I watched that film, I broke down like an emotional wreck in Good Will Hunting. Because I related to that film so much with not only Robin Williams, the psychiatrist, walking him through his physical abuse, but the constant blaming and being angry at yourself from blaming yourself for something that you couldn't control. I've almost cried, but I haven't, so kudos, Daniel, for not crying on camera. So up until I was still going through the therapy at age 16, I didn't get out of my damaging mindset until 20. I stopped self-harming at age 19. But during the therapy, some stuff happened which made me, this is what kind of like made me convert out of Christianity, was the fact that my father nearly died. He was diagnosed with a disease called PRP. It's some big name but it's basically my father's skin all through his body doubled in size. He was shedding 10 times the amount of normal skin would shed on a person. So he'd sit down on a couch, he'd get up, and there'd be literally a pile of dead skin that he would be shedding. And it was supposed to be an incurable disease. It is incurable for the most part, PRP, and it was supposed to last for the rest until he died, but by some miraculous thing, it went away after 2.5 years. But it got to the point where my dad when we would sleep, my dad would have to be put in bed, plastic covers that would cover his body with oil, because his skin would be so dried out and like break apart and flake, and it was just a terrible experience. And it made me question, like, my dad was a very godly, conservative, really, really kind of bigot at that time, which I'm going to get into later. And I couldn't understand why God would allow this type of thing to happen to my dad, who my dad would sometimes preach on when the pastor would be gone. My dad would be the leader of the singing group and stuff like that, and I looked at my dad as a man of God at the time, and I couldn't understand why God would allow this to happen. So after 2.5 years, the disease went away. People said it was God who healed him, and I was like, no, I don't think so. We actually still don't know what exactly. He's actually technically not healed. The skin condition could come back any time, but it went away. But he has permanent scar and tissue damage all over his body from that. And then it was when my dad had a stroke. Soon after, my dad nearly died. Was in the hospital for a week. It shook up my world. I'm like, why is this happening to someone? My dad. Why is this happening to someone who's a man of God? Why are you allowing this to happen? And that's kind of when I converted out of Christianity, because between the sexual abuse, the relationships, and all the promises that happened to me, and being told in the church that I never told you this. When I went into the church after the sexual abuse had happened and had been dealt with, I asked people in my church why would God allow someone, a child of God, a Christian, to be sexually abused in his own church? And I asked that question, and I was told that God would never allow something to happen that I couldn't handle. And if something bad happened to me, that it was because God was using that to help me grow. And that was the slap into my face, is when I was told that my sexual abuse happened because God wanted to help me grow closer to him. That was the most degrading, insulting. That's when I said, I can't do this anymore. I walked away and I said, I cannot be in this religion where I am told that my sexual abuse happened because God wanted to help me grow as a person. That was one of the most insulting things anyone could have said to me at that time. And that's where I started making videos against religion on YouTube. I made my videos several years after, of course, after I came out of religion. I made videos on YouTube. And between, having peers like that I had watched on YouTube, I was subscribed to a lot of atheist channels, watching their videos debunk Christianity and stuff like that also helped me convert out of Christianity and just push it away completely. So thanks to all the early day YouTubers like Thunderfoot, and even back in the day when the Amazing Atheist made videos specifically on atheism, those videos helped me come out of Christianity. And I was so happy that it did. Because if I was still in religion right now, I would be dead. I would not be here right now. Period. I would not be sitting here making this video if I had been in religion any longer. Sounds weird to say this, but atheism to an extent saved my life. I'm not a radical atheist. People want to believe in God, they're entitled. I have no problem with someone believing in God. I'm not going to not talk to you, not be your friend because you believe in God. That's ridiculous. I'm not like that. I just don't believe that there's enough empirical data and evidence to prove that there is a supernatural being known as God. Whether that God is God from the Bible, some God known as Zeus, I don't know. But I have no problem with people believing in it. But I will agree that when I first came out of religion on my channel, my first videos on atheism and stuff, they were really, really toxic. And I toxic with means I was like, fuck everybody who believes in God. You believe in God? Fuck you. You stupid bigot. Fuck you, dude. I think that's, when I converted out of religion, that was my mentality. And now, as time has went on and I've grown as a person, I don't care if you believe in God. You're entitled to believe whatever you want to believe. As long as what you believe doesn't hurt other people, I'm okay with that. This is the cool part. And I haven't really told people this. 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, my dad had another stroke. He went blind in his left eye. My dad had brain damage. And now, I actually have a relationship with my father. From a stroke. It sounds really weird to say that, but I never really had a good relationship with my father growing up. We'd always argue and fight simply because I believe different things in religion. I believe in evolution. We'd fight at the dinner table all the time. My dad was very black and white. He was very angry all the time at me because I believed in things that he didn't believe in regards to Christianity. My dad did a lot of very hurtful things to me growing up, but things that I have forgiven him for. But since my dad's second stroke, he is amazing. He's more sensitive. He's no longer black and white. Like, whatever happened to the stroke, although my dad's had brain damage, he's not the same person. He's someone who I can sit down and talk to about things now. And it's difficult because all those years I never had with my father are just starting to now happen to where I can actually build a relationship with my father, get to know my father without him browbeating me, without him attacking me with words, that is, and making me feel worthless. Because just 2 weeks ago, you won't believe this, 2 weeks ago, I gave my dad the movie, I let him borrow the movie Perks of Being a Wallflower. And after the movie was done, he said to me, and my mom and me both looked at each other and just like, our jaws just dropped, like, he looked at me and he said, I thought the gay couple was the best in that movie. And the reason I say that is because my dad has always been, I wouldn't call him homophobic, or maybe, I don't even know if he would be homophobic, but in the past when he was religious, he would turn off the TV if a gay couple kissed. He'd be disgusted by any sort of activity, a couple, a lesbian couple, a gay couple. He'd just be like, oh my gosh, I can't watch this. I remember years ago, I let him borrow some movie of mine, and they were making a gay couple kissed in the film, and he turned it off and said he refuses to watch the rest of the movie because of that. And he said to me, I love the gay couple. They were the best in that movie. It sounds so strange that I can say that my dad's second stroke, which nearly killed him, he went blind in his left eye. And here he is. His black and white religious radical views are just gone. It's affected him in a positive way, a way in which has helped me build a better relationship with him. And I guess the hardest thing right now is that he's probably going to be dead in 5 years. Guaranteed. I hate saying that, but it's the reality. Because my dad has a lot of health problems. And when he dies, it's going to be very, very hard, because the first thing that's going to come into my mind is all of the times that I didn't spend the time with him, that I didn't have a relationship with him due to our religious differing beliefs. And it's going to be hard, but I got to prepare for it. So there's that part. That's a positive thing. That's like, I know I'm getting emotional, but that's a positive thing that happened, is my dad's second stroke, because it's changed my relationship with him drastically. Wow, this video is 37 minutes long already. Keep going. Hi, come here. My dog's name is Haley. Hi. Hi, puppy. Baby. You're my little puppy, yeah. I want to let people know that you can get through whatever you're going through. I'm serious. Don't let, whether it be sexual abuse or religion, bring you down. Don't blame yourself for things that you can't control. Don't. It'll make you a miserable person. A lot of people wouldn't even know that I have a mental illness, diagnosed depression from all the stuff that happened to me. So anytime the month comes around, the day that comes around when those things happen, I get severely depressed. All my compartmentalization, tempted to commit suicide twice. It was hard, but I made it through it. If I can do it, you can do it. And now I'm in a happy relationship with someone who I love and care for. My current girlfriend taught me what it's like to actually be loved. Because before, up until just this year, I didn't really know what it was like to feel loved by anyone. And that was hard. It was very hard not knowing what love was, or knowing the feeling of being loved, because I'm a very physical person. I'm someone who needs constant, affirmation, constant physical affection. From the stuff that happened to me, feeling loved by someone is very important. And it wasn't until recently of this year that I even felt that. And if I can go through what I've been through, then you can go through it too. These types of situations make us a stronger person. Rather than look at it negatively and say, this was the worst thing that happened to me last year or this year, I look at it as a growing experience that has changed my life, that I can apply all of my life experiences to the future. I'm not done yet, though. So remember when I said that my ex-girlfriend would be back? Well, 2 years ago, I've already mentioned this before, so I'll make it brief. I was taken to court by my ex-girlfriend, the crazy one, the one with the crazy family that deemed me that I was going to marry their daughter. I was taken to court under a bunch of accusations that she was claiming that I did some stuff to her, whether it be sexual abuse, whether it be... She made a bunch of accusations, that being one of them, that I was trying to slander her, that I was trying to go behind her back and contact all of her friends and tell them evil thing, like stuff that she did to me and stuff, how manipulating and controlling she was. I went to court. I had to hire a lawyer. She threatened to... I should mention that before she took me to court, I got several messages from her threatening me, saying that unless I respond to her, that she's going to take me to court, and I just completely ignored it. And that's the thing I don't understand about her, is that several years went by before we had hardly any contact, and then all of a sudden she starts contacting me and claims that I'm harassing her, and that I don't even know how to explain the situation other than she took me to court claiming that I was harassing her when she was blocked on every social networking site that I had. And the court threw it out because she had no evidence to prove anything. And that was really painful experience for me, because it reunited a lot of pain that she caused me, for whatever reason, I don't know. I'm still clueless as to why she wanted to take me to court for whatever reason. I just find it so funny that everything got thrown out that she accused me of, because I had emails saved from her, that when we originally broke up, she said that if I dated anybody else, that she would threaten to say things about me which were not true. So she made threats to me after we originally broke up, and I had those saved up until that current day of the court, that I used in court, saying that, she was threatening to claim that I was a rapist, that I was harassing her, that I should be someone who should be arrested because I cheated on her, which is funny because she cheated on me, but apparently because, she left me and then went for another guy, and then I was single, so I started dating some other people, and that was considered cheating. It's like, she broke up with me, I'm going out to date other people, I'm the person who's cheating? No, you ended it with me. But I had all the stuff backed up, so the court case got thrown out, but that was a really painful experience for me, because just to be in the same presence as her, as someone, it reunited a lot of my pain that I had. So there was that, and that was just 2 years ago. What else? I think I've talked about most of the stuff that's happened. For those of you who don't know, I did move out. That's the one positive great thing. I moved out January of 2014. I moved out of my own place despite living in low-income housing. Living on my own has taught me so many great things about myself. It has made me a responsible human being. I'm really glad that my dad kind of forced me out of the household at that time because he thought it would be good for me. And there was other reasons because that was actually... I got forced out of the house due to reasons such as my beliefs were really conflicting with my parents' stuff, and I was making videos and, talking about atheism. They didn't want that type of promotion in their house being used on their internet because I was promoting things that they didn't agree with, which I guess that does make sense. So there's a bunch of reasons why I needed to move out, and they forced me to move out, but that was probably the main reason. And from that moving out experience, I'm grateful for my parents wanting me to move out, forcing me to move out, because it's helped me grow so much as a person. And I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for my parents forcing me out of the house. It wouldn't be for this. Despite me being in a religious household and growing up in a religious, toxic environment, my parents taught me a lot of good things. At age 16, I got my first job. I started paying for my own stuff all at age 16. They taught me how to be responsible. That's one good quality that they did teach me. This video is now 46 minutes long, and I guarantee you most of you guys have not gotten this far in this video. So, I'm going to end it with this message. You are an awesome human being who are watching this video right now. I want you to have a successful 2015. Do not let anybody tell you that you're not valuable, that you're not worthy, and that if you're going through a hard time, whether it be sexual abuse, bullying, you can make it. You can get out of it, and you'll become a stronger person. Use the negative experiences in your life to make yourself a strong individual. That's what I did. I used all the negative things that happened to me, and I turned them around, and I made them into a positive experience. And that positive experience saved my life as a whole. If I can go through sexual abuse and bullying and come out, you can too. Don't compartmentalize. Don't hold in your feelings. Look at the negatives and twist them into a positive. Because when you do that, your life will get a lot better. And you'll become so strong that nothing any other people will say to you will affect you. That's how I got there. Happy New Year's, guys. Hope it's a good 2015. Peace.